What is up, everyone? Kyle Flexstorm McGee here with the WWE Survivor Series 2021 official The Pack review. So let's get right into it. The pre-show had some interesting moments, to say the least. The pre-show match, the kickoff show match, was Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura with Rick Boogs versus United States Champion Damian Priest. Nakamura representing Smackdown, Priest representing Raw. One thing I didn't care for, and the more I see him, the more I don't care for him, is Rick Boogs. I think he really takes away from Nakamura. I know that he's supposed to kind of add a layer to Nakamura and help him kind of get over with the crowd, but it takes away from it for me. It takes away from what Nakamura does in the ring and everything like that. It feels like Boogs gets over almost at the expense of Nakamura. And I just didn't really care for that in this match. And that was one thing that I didn't care for throughout the entire match, was the entire match was not about Nakamura versus Damian Priest, which for the most part had some decent action. It was a pretty heavy striking and submission-based match. These two were trading heavy and stiff strikes. They had some really crisp-looking moves, and I think on paper, this could have been one of the better matches of the night. But the first red flag was that it got booted to the kickoff show instead of the match that should have been on the kickoff show, which I will get to later on. And the other thing was the entirety of the match was booked around Rick Boogs playing his guitar and it angering Damian Priest because he plays it and it distracts Priest. That ends up culminating when, earlier on in the match, Priest had warned Boogs, if you play it one more time, it's the last warning. Then he gets Nakamura in a go-go plata as a counter to Nakamura having him in an armbar, and it was a really cool spot. Boogs starts playing the guitar. Priest almost gets pinned because he was distracted. Snaps, goes out, grabs the guitar from Boogs, snaps it in half. Boogs goes to grab him. He smacks Rick Boogs with the guitar. Nakamura goes to grab him. He smacks Nakamura with the guitar and gets disqualified. So the first match of the pay-per-view, brand versus brand, this brand warfare for brand supremacy, ends in a disqualification. Don't get me wrong, I liked the idea of using this match to solidify Damian Priest as a heel, because I know they've been kind of like pushing him further and further into that, and this was kind of the move that officially solidified it. But really didn't care for it here on the pay-per-view, and I'm sure that's probably why they did it on the kickoff show as opposed to on the pay-per-view. After that, we see Vince McMahon arrive into the arena in his limousine, and having his employees give him a round of applause and get excited, he tells them, hold on just a second. And he pulls out the Cleopatra egg, which is the big part of The Rock's new movie, Red Notice, and has his roster members applaud for that as well. It was really weird. I didn't give my grade for the last match, by the way, so I'm going to do that really quickly. Damian Priest versus Shinsuke Nakamura, C-. But this segment happens, and it kind of happens throughout the night. So that was on the pre-show. Then during the pay-per-view, Roman goes into Vince's office. He's like, hi, and then Vince is like, oh, I wanted to show you this. What do you think? Oh, it's not the one from the movie. It's the real thing. It's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And Roman's just kind of like, that's going to be the size of my next contract, and the segment ends. And then later in the night, the thing gets stolen, and he has to find out who it is. So I'm going to grade the entire Vince McMahon segment, starting from him showing up to it being stolen. I'm going to grade Vince McMahon with the egg as a WTF. What the F did this have doing on the pay-per-view? It was so senseless. No matter where they go with this, there was absolutely no reason for this to be part of the Big Four pay-per-view, and there's no way they can turn this into a story worth telling, in my opinion. There's no storyline that, as a result, you can say, as Penny gets excited running by me, this was a great way to start this storyline. So WTF is my grade. We get to the pay-per-view intro, and they mix in the Survivor Series hype package to start the show with Red Notice. This entire show is riddled with this. It's commercials for Red Notice or promos about The Rock. We're celebrating 25 years of The Rock, and he's not even going to be there. It just felt really out of place, and it kind of undermined the importance of the brand supremacy. The Survivor Series, this big 4 pay-per-view that WWE does every year, in the intro package for the show, is showcasing a movie that The Rock is starring in on Netflix. That should tell you everything you need to know about this show. Kicks off big, however. Becky Lynch versus Charlotte. Charlotte, the SmackDown Women's Champion, versus the Raw Women's Champion, Becky Lynch. There's been a lot of controversy about whether or not their storyline is a work or a shoot. I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to take it at face value. This was a pretty intense storyline building into it, and it kicked off like that right away. These two immediately went at each other, immediately going for big moves. You know, Charlotte tries to immediately hit the natural selection. Becky immediately goes for a disarmer. They scuffle. A spear happens. You know, it just starts off instant chaos, and these two delivered an incredible match. You know, they hit each other with some of each other's own moves. Unfortunately, the figure 4 from Becky was a little botched, but it was still a pretty cool moment. You know, Charlotte gets her with the disarmer. Charlotte hits her with a Bexploder suplex into the corner. You know, they're trading their big moves back and forth. They're landing their big moves back and forth. Charlotte with her big moonsault to the outside as always. It was a really good showing that explains, despite how pushed down people's throats I felt like Charlotte is at times, and at times Becky as well over the past few years, it showed why they are the 2 top women in the company. These two can go out there on any given night and deliver a match of the night. The ending came when Charlotte rolled Becky up and tried to get a cheap pin by holding the ropes. The referee noticed it, argued with Charlotte, and then Becky reversed it and got a pin of her own and held the ropes right at the last second herself for the win. It was a bit of a weird finish. It made them both look strong, though, so I get the point behind it. Becky gets the win, heading into her match with her next challenge, which has already been established as Liv Morgan. So giving her the win here when she hasn't established what's up next makes sense. Great match. I gave it an A. I think with a little bit more fleshed out and better finish, I probably would have given it an A+. It was a very good match, but I gave that match an A. After this, we move on to Men's Team Raw versus Team Smackdown. Interesting start to this one. The men's entrances alone lasted over 10 minutes, close to 15. I felt like that was a little odd to make the entrances that long. They did correct this a bit later on for the women's SmackDown match. Didn't last nearly as long. Kevin Owens says he wants to fight for Team Raw, and he needs to start the match off when it looks like Rollins is going to. He tells the referee, ring the bell, and he is getting all hyped up to go at it with King Woods, and then rolls out of the ring, walks up the ramp, gets himself counted out. With the storyline they've been doing with Kevin Owens, I think it made sense, although it was a little weird to start the match off that way. I think it also made sense. So now it's 5-on-4 already. This match had some good moments. You know, there was a lot of callback to Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, which was good for them actually having continuity's sake. Everybody got to land their, signature offense in. There was nothing. The only inherently bad thing in this match, in my honest opinion, was the fact that you had, let me see, 1, 2, 3 countouts in this match. 3 different countouts in this match. So Kevin Owens walks out. A few people get eliminated. They also made King Woods look really weak in this match. Got absolutely destroyed by Bobby Lashley with pretty much no offense, put to sleep. Okay, whatever, that's fine. Balor eliminated Corbin before that. Things like that. But then you get Lashley and McIntyre and their callback for their feud. They end up brawling on the outside, end up going back and forth like crazy, and end up with a double count out as McIntyre's trying to get his way back in. I thought it was really odd. There's been a lot of reports that WWE is planning on doing McIntyre versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. or even apparently even maybe McIntyre versus Reigns versus Lesnar at WrestleMania. Either way, there's been a lot of talk that WWE's plan has been to book Drew McIntyre to be kind of the next big up against Roman Reigns, and I don't feel like this was the right way to accomplish it. If you were worried about protecting Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre in this match, maybe could have just not had them in it. Could have had somebody else be on Team SmackDown instead of Drew McIntyre, and you could even have the storyline purpose of he was just on Raw and carried the banner for Raw during the pandemic era and representing SmackDown, even though he's now part of this brand, just didn't feel right to him yet. I feel like there were better ways to go about it, but whatever, it was okay. The outside action was actually pretty good. We get down to it being Finn Balor. At that point, it's now Finn Balor, Austin Theory, and Seth Rollins versus Jeff Hardy and Sheamus. I almost said Jeff Hardy on Team Raw. That's why I had to stop myself there for a second. Sheamus ends up eliminating Finn Balor with a bro kick. Some good back and forth action happens here. They actually do a pretty cool tandem offense moment where those clubbing blows that Sheamus likes to do, Jeff and Sheamus do that together to Austin Theory and Seth Rollins. Pretty cool moment. Austin Theory ends up rolling Sheamus up and holds the tights as he does it after Seth Rollins pulls Jeff Hardy off the ring apron when Sheamus is going for a tag. Sheamus gets frustrated, attacks Austin Theory, and then drops Jeff Hardy as well. We get a little bit further. Jeff Hardy eliminates Austin Theory after a vicious-looking Swanton bomb. Crowd is nuts for Hardy here. And then Hardy goes for the Swanton bomb on him, hits the knees, Rollins with a curb stomp, and Seth Rollins gets the win for Team Raw. I think Seth winning for Team Raw made absolute sense. We've already established him as the next challenger for Biggie, so giving him this big win and being the sole survivor in this match, I think made sense. The match itself, to me, left a lot to be desired. We had the guy who's been looking like one of the top faces on SmackDown and King Woods being tossed aside like nothing. We had 3 guys get counted out in this match. Not that great of a match. To be 100% honest with you, I give it a C. I think it could have been a lot better, but that's just me. We moved on to the Rock 25-year Battle Royal, a.k.a. the Pizza Hut Battle Royal. Most of this match was spent promoting Pizza Hut. You had the pizza spot inside the ring, really some comedy spots, and then Omos dominating, accidentally eliminating AJ Styles. Omos, I believe they said, finished the 25-man Battle Royal with 12 eliminations, so he eliminated half of his opponents. He had 24 opponents. Ricochet surprisingly stayed in till the end, so that was good. And then after the match, when he wants some pizza, the Street Profits run off with the last slices. I give this an F. This is the one that should have been on the pre-show. This was an absolute waste of time. It did not belong on the pay-per-view card. It would have been fine on the pre-show and probably still would have been an F. But that's about all I have to say about that match. That was an absolute fail. Next up, RK Bro versus the Usos. Randy Orton, on a positive note, setting the record for most ever pay-per-view match appearances, 177. That is incredible, and it's incredible when you consider he is definitely going to be breaking that record. He's going to be at Day 1. He's going to be at Royal Rumble. We know he's going to be at WrestleMania. Barring any injuries, he's going to be at all those pay-per-views and more. I venture to say it wouldn't be surprising if Randy Orton gets up to 200 before he retires. Obviously, these two were pretty popular with the crowd. Randy Orton, if you go back and watch some of our old pay-per-view predictions videos from way back in the early 2010s, I talked about Drew and I going to Survivor Series and how popular Orton was then. It's still the same today. This was a decent match. You know, you got the typical RK Bro offense, the usual offense from the Usos. Really fun, good stuff here. Riddle takes most of the heat from the Usos near the end of the match. One of the Usos doesn't realize that Orton has been tagged in. He's going for the splash on Riddle, and then Orton dives in and hits a huge RKO as the Usos go for their splash. 1, 2, 3, RK Bro wins. And after that match, we now have Raw lost via disqualification on the pre-show. So SmackDown 1-0. Then the Raw Women's Champion wins, making it 1-1. Then The Raw men's team won, making it 2-1. And now RK, and then the Battle Royal, 3-1. And now RK Bro, 4-1. So just to be clear, 4-1 in favor of Raw as we head into the women's Team SmackDown versus Team Raw match. And the only victory that SmackDown has is a disqualification. Absolutely surprising. I don't think a lot of people were completely expecting SmackDown to get dominated last night. But interesting. I think it's kind of absurd that their only victory heading into the women's match is a disqualification win. But the women's match was actually pretty good. Another thing of seeing everybody get their offense in. Carmella with her little mask actually gets herself eliminated very early and throws a fit about it. Rhea Ripley kind of tossed her mask to the side. She gets distracted, gets rolled up. We go from there. It goes a good while longer before anybody else gets eliminated, and then Toni Storm eliminates Selena Vega. Liv Morgan hits the Oblivion and ends up eliminating Toni Storm. So they're now up 4-3. SmackDown women's team is. A little bit of communication breakdown and kind of infighting between Sasha and Shotzi early on, and even the other women with Sasha, where Sasha goes to tag out and is getting beat up basically, and none of them are there to tag her out. But they end up getting some more eliminations. Rhea Ripley gets eliminated, and sorry, I'll be honest, I can't remember the other Raw women's team member that got eliminated. Liv Morgan got eliminated. Rhea Ripley gets eliminated, and we are now down to Bianca Belair versus 4 women from Team SmackDown. Starts with Sasha. The infighting starts between her and Shotzi. She shoves Shotzi into Shayna on the outside. She goes to get back into the ring. Shayna pulls her out and is mad at her. She hits Shayna. For some reason, Natalya decides to attack Sasha for whatever reason. Sasha stops her. They all stop her. And Sasha Banks gets counted out. She's eliminated. Made the SmackDown women's team look really kind of dumb. I understood Shayna pulling her out and being like, you just shoved her into me, and then getting mad when she gets hit. Natalya coming in and grabbing Sasha made absolutely no sense, and it really just made them kind of look dumb. They go to swarm Bianca. They have a little bit of success. Bianca ends up obviously eliminating them, and it comes down to her and Sasha and Shotzi. She ends up hitting the KOD for the victory. Raw's women's team survives after the SmackDown women's team has an absolute breakdown, and Bianca Belair is the sole survivor, and SmackDown is now down 5-1 with their only win being a disqualification heading into the main event. So RK Bro versus the Usos, I gave a B. SmackDown versus Raw women's team match, I gave a B-. Had the team breakdown made a little bit more sense on the Natalya end, it probably would have been a little bit better. But this was still a pretty good match. I did not mind it one bit. Like I said, they kind of looked stupid there for a little bit. But the match itself, I actually did enjoy. So now on to the main event. We have a fun little backstage interview where Kayla Braxton, as always, scares the hell out of Paul Heyman. He tells her to please stop doing that. And she informs him that it sounds like the suspension is no longer going to be a thing for Brock Lesnar. He looks scared. Tells her she can ask Adam Pearce about that. And then we get going with the hype package and move into the main event. This was big men beating the crap out of each other. The unfortunate thing in this match, and really through the entirety of the show after the first match, is the crowd was dead for it. Biggie versus Roman was an awesome match. We saw some really cool moments. One of my favorite moments of the match was Roman hits 3 Superman punches before he finally gets Biggie down. The big ooh-ah goes for the spear, and as he comes back up, Biggie is standing there. They have some cool spots. Biggie, gets him, spears him to the outside. Roman hits him with a spear. He kicks out. He hits Roman with the big ending. Roman gets the ropes just barely because he was right there. And then some more fighting goes on, and it eventually ends when Roman hits the spear. 1, 2, 3. Gets the win to close the show for SmackDown. 5-2. Raw takes the edge on Survivor Series, but another great match between Roman Reigns and Big E. These two are the number one guys on their shows for reasons. Great great showing by these two. I give it an A as well. I think it and the Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair match were easily the two best matches of the night. The bad parts of the night was the Raw versus SmackDown men's team match. Jeff Hardy having his moment was pretty cool, but other than that, not a lot great to talk about in that match personally. Damian Priest for Shinsuke Nakamura was extremely weak. The Battle Royal was just awful. Overall, I'm going to give the entire show a C-. And the reason for that is while we had two really high-quality matches and two decent ones, we had three subpar ones and then the awful Battle Royal. The entire show was spent promoting The Rock and The Rock's movie without The Rock there at the detriment of the show itself. The show had no build, and it felt like it. The crowd was dead after the first match, other than a few bright spots, like with Jeff Hardy being the sole survivor for his team before Rollins wins, and then, the crowd being hot for Orton, and a few big moments in Biggie versus Roman where they finally got into it. Crowd being dead kind of killed it. The entire show was just a dud. Poor build, a lot of poor matches, a few good ones, and focusing the show on a guy who's not there just because it's his 25th year since his debut. So overall, a C-. Definitely the worst pay-per-view I've done for my review series so far, but who knows? Last pay-per-view of 2021, and it ends on a dud. Fingers crossed, day one is not as bad or worse. I'm Kyle McGee. I'll see you guys next time.